Hello everyone, what a fucking week that was, right? First round of the playoffs is done, wildcard weekend's over. We're going to be talking more about the games that happened on ELF Live. I'm going to do a very quick power ranking of the 4 teams we have left, and I'm going to talk about the next games. We will be talking a lot about the 2 games that happened on the ELF Live. So I'll be coming out same day. This is going to be recorded Sunday, and then hopefully released Monday morning, and then you guys can watch the ELF show at 12 o'clock Central European time, so it should be good. Let's not do that. I want to get into it because the next round of games can be interesting. Of course, this is a combination, kind of like the how-tos that I usually do on Tuesdays and the power rankers on Mondays for time efficiency, and then we should have Flores Calderon video out hopefully soon as well. So let's just get into it. At number 4, we have Stuttgart Surge. Still Stuttgart Surge, because having played bye week, we've seen the other 2 come in and play well. So they are, and I'm still a little bit, I'm a little bit on the fence about that Raiders loss. I'm rewatching it. A lot of mistakes. We'll see how they look when they come against the Ryan Fire team. It's going to be incredibly interesting. We'll break that down in a minute. But I just have a lot of questions. You know, they're obviously a super stacks team. They obviously have talent everywhere. You look at their receiver core, you look at their offensive line, you look at Riley, you look at the defense with Fettig and with Wilson, you look at Chad, you look at Simeon, you look at Mwamba. There's so many phenomenal players on this Surge team. And again, it's last, but they're fucking fourth. They're in the playoffs. I have a lot of questions. I do, because the other losses that the teams have faced above them have been, Paris, I think you could argue with, but Paris have played a little bit, they're a bit more battle tested. Surge aren't as battle tested. They lost to the Raiders, who aren't a playoff team, which I know is very close, but it's relevant. It is relevant, and they are going to have a really tough game against Fire. We'll get into that. But number 3, Vienna Vikings. Down 1 from last time, because the other 2 are played. And I think that does obviously come into as recency bias, right? These power rankings are all about recency bias. That's the thing that I think a lot of people get confused about, is that if a team has played and a team hasn't played, I'm probably going to put the team that's played above them. That's just how I do the power rankings. I think that's how you should do it. It's week by week. It's what have you done for me lately? That's the whole point of these power rankings. So Vienna have gone down 1. They have an interesting matchup with Paris, and we'll get into that. They are the number 1 seed, naturally, but they didn't play, so I've dropped them down. Paris won, I'm going to call it an all-time classic, because it was, against Munich, and we'll talk about the game tomorrow, or today, but what a fucking game. For me, they showed, first of all, Zach's an absolute dog at quarterback. Volumbo hurt at the end, had an amazing performance, 3 touchdowns, I believe, on the day, but then came off hurt, and that's a worrying thing. Mahonru still isn't back 100%. The Rose got a little bit banged up, so honestly, Paris a little bit banged up. So I kind of went back and forth between them and Vienna, but an interesting one. I think it'll be very telling on how they deal with those injury issues coming into next week. But they for me showed a lot. They showed they can get to my first seeds again. They just find a way. They find a way these close games. Bar the Rhine ones, right? That's the only thing we got to question. It's those 2 Rhine losses. They had a close game against Frankfurt. They had a close game against Madrid. They had a close game against Munich. They had a close game against the Fire the first time. Most of the time, except for the Fire ones, they found a way to win. And they did it again. And they did it again with a last drive. They put it all together, and they ended up getting a win. They can do it in the air, they can do it on the ground. The defense is severely underrated, because they just have so many weapons. They're so big, so athletic, so strong, fast. Chandler Jones is back. Had a bit of a rough day against Malik, but still, it's a very talented defense. And I think because it is recency, and that is what this is about. If people just only look at a flat 4 and think that, but it's all about just how we take week by week. And number 1 is still Ryan. They fucking shat on Madrid. I'm not gonna lie. People in Madrid probably won't be too happy to say that, but they fucking dominated. Start to finish. They looked completely and utterly in control for every single second of that game. didn't even look close. It looked like they weren't playing the playoff team. Maybe you could argue Madrid don't turn up, but Ryan just absolutely ground them into the floor. To be honest, they had the backups in like the fourth quarter. We got so bored in stream we started talking about Marseille. Like, it was just really easy for them. It was really, really, really simple, easy, effective. Jadrian was on fire. Harden had the best, I believe, the record for most receiving yards in a playoff game. Glenn scored early, and they didn't have an answer for any of it. Defensively, they played well. A couple turnovers, but they didn't really have an issue. And that is why they're going to remain at number 1 on these power rankings. Now, here we have the playoff picture. Does that not fill you? I just got goosebumps. Brimming of excitement. We're going to start with Ryan Stuttgart. Now, I know this is the later game. The first game is Paris versus Vienna on Saturday, and we got Ryan versus Stuttgart on Sunday. However, I did it in this order, and now I'm going to talk about it in this order anyway. Ryan are the 3rd seed. Stuttgart are the 2 seed. Obviously, points. They're both 2 fantastic defenses. Probably the best 2 defenses in the league this season. I think statistically in points terms of points, they are the 2 best defenses in the league. My question for the Surge, and I know some of the players watch the videos, and I know a lot of people support the Surge that are close with the channel. Shout out Marcus, shout out Nick. But this is my question, is how do you stop Ryan? Everywhere. Because you've got Glenn, you've got Jay, 1 MVP, 1 probably MVP. Haaland, who is my best European receiver. He's probably better than some of the Americans. Actually, he is better than some of the Americans we've had in the ELF. Absolutely no doubt about it. And then you have McKnight, who was quiet in the last game, but he's an absolute dog. Sergi, one of the best the best offensive line in Europe, you could argue, and I have a really, really, really strong case for. All of them are all-stars. And then you flip over to the defense, and you've got the best defense in terms of scoring, got one of the most in-depth defensive lines in Europe, probably the most in-depth defensive line. You've got Amari Williams and Marshawn Franklin, who are 2 of the best turnover creating DBs in Europe. I don't know how you stop that. And then a linebacker, you got Falola, you got Zimon, you got Kenzie, 3 really great players, and then you got Tony Anderson, one of the best European defensive backs, can play nickel, safety, corner. How do you stop that? Because I don't have the answer. Maybe Stuttgart do. Maybe they've thought of some things. Maybe they've got a game plan going. Well, they will have a game plan going into this game. I just can't see it. I can't see how any team has it, to be honest. We've seen maybe Madrid was a bit of a fluke. I know some people said that, and I was kind of like, oh well, Madrid is still a very good team, but I mean, they beat the brakes out of them both the times they played, and Stuttgart have looked vulnerable in some of their games. Even when they're winning by a ton, and I know sometimes you say they look vulnerable in a massive victory, and it sounds a bit silly, but you can always see a few things, right? And Stuttgart have had a few of that. They've had close games to the Raiders. They've had close games, well, they lost to the Raiders once in the close game the first time. Stuttgart, I think, are going to have to figure that plan out, first and foremost. But then also, they're not going to want to play Ryan's game. If you play Ryan's game, you're just going to be trying to stop Glenn. They've got a great rush defense, granted. They have a really solid defense that a lot of those pieces go under the radar, especially a lot of the Germans. But they've been stopped more recently against a worse team. I still think Madrid would probably beat the Raiders. They've been beaten more recently by a worse not playoff team, you know? It's a weird one. Stuttgart, Riley's going to have to play the full game, which is something we've not seen. And I know I can't remember if I had an All-Star, but when we did the ELF All-Star ranking streams, he comparable wise has about the same amount of attempts as everyone else, more than a few other people like Jay. So it's not like he's not had the time on the field. He's obviously one of the best quarterbacks in Europe. No one's going to doubt that. But then he has to throw against a really fucking good defense. That's the thing with Amari, who's one of the best turnover creators the league seen. You know, I think he's tied first, just needs one more, but people have been avoiding him, so we haven't been able to get it. And then Marshall's been like a revelation since he came in. Like, he's been a monster. It's so difficult. Like, I am going to go for a Fire win. I think they get the upset because seeding wise, there technically would be an upset. I don't know if there's a betting thing who would be the underdog, or like I get it to be maybe a pick'ems game. But I think it's going to kind of shape out a lot like the final did last year. I think we're going to have a high scoring one potentially. I don't know, because both these defenses are improved from last year. Maybe lower scoring than the final, but I think it'll be a lot like the final. I think the Rhein defensively have dealt with Stuttgart before. I know it's a different season, but a lot of Stuttgart is still the same. A lot of the offensive line is still the same. A lot of the receiver cores are still the same. It's the same quarterback. They know how to deal with that. Stuttgart didn't know how to deal with fire. They stopped them a few times. They were able to take some, turnovers away. They still gave up 54 points, something like that. 50 odd points. So that would be my big thing, is that Rhein have done this. Rhein have beaten this, not this incarnation, but a very similar one from last season, where Stuttgart don't have the same level of expertise as maybe the Rhein Fire team does in that department. So I'm going to go for them. I'm going to go for Rhein. I think if I had to give a score, 35 to 28. I think I'm going to go for that. Be a close one. They're two extremely talented teams, but I'm just going to go with them. Game 2, Paris versus Vienna. This one also might be a long explanation because this video is going to be shorter in the power ranking part, but longer in this bit. And it's going to be a lot of me just talking. So I hope you guys like that. So, Paris versus Vienna is so fun, first and foremost, because Paris, I think, are my most fun team because they've had such close games, as I mentioned earlier. They find a way to win, but they are going to be on the road. Let's start with Vienna. This is by far the best team they've ever had to play, by far, easily. Maybe the best team they've had to play in the ELF. Honestly, it could be that deep. Paris have got such a good squad. Zach's on Offensive Player of the Year level. I think he's got Offensive Player of the Year. Obviously, we'll find out. But I think he's got that wrapped up, especially with his player performances. He's so tough to contain. They've got Mahonru, they've got LaRose, they've got Austin Mitchell, they've got Tekadam. They've got Remy Berthelin. That's a great receiver core. Running back injuries are a concern. The offensive line's stacked. Lepman's been hurt for a bit, but Pauly Sacramento's a baller. They got Lewis Thomas, who's an all-star player. They got Gasparo, who's been really good. They've got Felicia, he's a really good homegrown tackle. They've got a ton of players on that offense that could give Vienna issues. Vienna defensively, they'll be younger in some places. They'll be more inexperienced. A little bit banged up some ways. Weapon X did get hurt during the year. Is he fully 100% fit and healthy to deal with these guys? We'll find out. But you've got a lot of people coming back for Vienna, but injuries are an issue for honestly both teams. So it kind of just depends on who's got the most depth. And I think the most depth is Paris. Paris have all of the French talent, not all of it, but most of the French talent. Vienna have split Austrian talent with the Raiders. So I think Paris have a little more depth, and they're going to be able to be a little bit better in that department. Defensively, they've got great athletes, they've got great size, they've got Mamadou, they've got Elo. They can stop that run game of Vienna, which is so important. You've got Jack Lau, you've got Stanley Zuregbe, you've got Dawson Dells, you've got Digan Gomez. A lot of guys that can make really good tackles, so Carey's going to have a fuck ton of work. And then Ben Holmes is still a question. We haven't seen him play a really good team. We haven't seen him play Maceo Beard and Chandler Jones and all these really great talented Paris players, but they've got injuries in their defense. Kalani didn't play. Saeed is incredibly inconsistent. Floret lost his head a couple times the last game, had 2 flags that really could have fucked up his team's chances of winning. So it's a tough one. My head tells me Paris. My heart tells me Vienna, because I kind of don't want to see a Rhein versus Paris game in the final, because I think that it will be a lot like the last two. I'd like to see a little bit of a different matchup. I am still going to go with Paris though. I think that's what we get. I think Paris and Rhein are the two best teams in the ELF at the moment. maybe this was preconceived spoilers with the power rankings, I guess, but I think these two teams are the best coming in. I think Vienna have got a lot more question marks. Paris have removed a couple of those question marks this week with this performance, because we had questions about Zach. Zach played a fucking hell of a game, so I think he silenced a lot of people in that regard. Whereas Vienna have a lot more pressure. Now you've got to win. Now you've got to risk your own. Now you have to play the team that's real, and you're the number 1 seed, and you're at home. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to go for Paris. I think this one's lower scoring. I'm going to go for like a 27 to like 20, maybe 21, 22 in favor of Paris. And that, I think, is the setup. I think we get a Ryan versus Paris final, which I don't know how to feel about, because it'll be very exciting, but I also kind of feel like this we would know the outcome of that one, but we'll get to that bridge maybe when we need to. And I was going to do it. This one's obviously a little bit longer than sometimes done, but a little bit shorter sometimes as well. And try and get back to editing. If you notice I changed shirt during after stream, it's because I spilled apple juice all over myself. I'm still a little bit hungover, hence the lower energy on this video. But hope you guys enjoyed. If you stayed around for the whole video, Flores Calderon hopefully out tomorrow by the time this comes out. I need to do a ton of voiceover work for that, so we'll see how far I get. But thank you very much. Stay sharp. See you soon. Thank you again for the stream. It was awesome. Tune in. I'm going to be streaming both of these games. See you soon. Thank you and goodbye.